So the first topic that I wanted to talk about on my new video blog is epistemology. So if you don't know, and that's fine if you don't, it's one of those words, you know. It's one of the four main branches of philosophy, which I think doesn't get enough attention. The other two main branches that I know about a little bit are logic and ethics. There's some other branch of philosophy, but I'm not going to talk about that probably until I decide that it's valid. Anyway, that's a joke, but epistemology, is the study of knowledge, and so that's whether we know if we're right. It also has this other name, gnoseology, okay? And that's understanding if our gnosis is true, right? And gnosis is knowledge. That's what it means, right? So we could talk about what knowledge is. We know what knowledge is in an intuitive way. We all do, like when we're doing a kind thing and we know that we're doing the right thing, or when we, have our child and we are experiencing joy, we know that joy is real and that's the real thing. I mean, that's the deepest kind of epistemology, is the personal intuitive knowledge, I believe. But there are lots of times that we can't use that intuitive knowledge. We don't have it. And there's also times when our intuition can be played, we can be played emotionally, right? So we have to be critical. And that's basically the basis of critical thinking is epistemology, right? I mean, that's where it comes from. So how do we do that? I mean, so a lot of the time people think they're either right or they're wrong. There's two possibilities. And in the early forms of logic, that was also like Boolean logic and so on, another form of philosophy. That was another thing where you're either, it was on or off. And that's how we developed the first computers and so on, right? Is that the little light makes little decisions. Well, we actually tell the light what to do. It's pretty interesting how computers work. But the electricity goes, and it either goes this on or off, right? It goes there. And so, that's pretty powerful. We run the whole world on binary, basically. It's cool. But the reality is different than that. Things aren't exactly on or off, actually. Computers can be. We've managed to create binary systems, which is cool. I mean, that might be how the universe got created, was with a computer, eh? Huh, interesting. Now, but let's see. Not to get off track, but really a more applicable type of logic that we found is fuzzy logic, okay? And so that's, or not, maybe not more applicable. I mean, it's more realistic, I guess, is what we can say. And that's where there's a degree, right? Where there's a degree of whether something is logical or not, right? It's a degree, right? And so there's also quantum logic, okay? And that's a real thing. Like people know quantum is one of those words that, you hear it and then you're like, oh, that must be spiritual woo, because whatever. But it's a mathematical concept, right? And a physics concept, right? Right. I mean, it's different concepts. The mechanics, there is some knowledge there. It's not just made up, right? And so quantum logic is actually where there can be multiple states that are all logical, right? They're all logical. In quantum logic, the multiple states. And as we observe things more finely and more finely, we discover that, things appear in multiple places at once, and position is not what we think, right? So, and how does this tie into epistemology, right? So we usually think we're right or wrong, right? But actually, there's also fuzzy epistemology, where you can be right to like a certain degree and wrong to a certain degree, and there's 0% to 100%. You could think about it that way. But really, if you look at things very finely and very closely, you find that epistemology also has a quantum aspect, where multiple perspectives are simultaneously happening, right? And they're consistent perspectives, right? So that's the big issue with epistemology, is that you have intellectual people from every perspective, right, who can easily defend their claim, right? I mean, and if they're talking to someone who isn't as good at debating with them, I mean, they're going to seem convincing to an onlooker for sure. I mean, unless the onlooker has predispositions, which they all do. So it's kind of tricky to investigate, because you have to really think about your own biases when you're doing this kind of thing. But understanding that a consistent perspective can still be wrong according to your values. Like, I had an hour-and-a-half conversation with a self-declared fascist Hitler Nazi, not even a Strasserist, not even like the kind of okay types of Nazis, but like a full-on Hitler, kill all the Jews Nazi guy. And like, we actually agreed about everything factually, like all the facts of history and so on, we agreed about, right? So, I mean, that's pretty compelling, right? Because you'd think that his epistemology would be right if he has all the facts right. But I mean, it's because he has such a warped perspective and because he's so scared. That's his problem. And fear is the mind killer, right? You can't be too scared. You should be cautious, of course. But if you get scared of everybody and you think everyone's trying to take away your whiteness, which they can't, they can't take that away from you, right? And your kids will be white if you have a white partner. I mean, you're allowed to do that. White people are still allowed to breed with each other. Yeah, right now, I know. But we'll see in the future if they are, right? Anyway, that's 541. So the point is you can modulate your perspective, right? You can change your perspective, and that will change what is true for you. And if you do that, that'll change actually what is happening in your life too. So what I'm going to talk about in this video blog is all of the ways that I apply what's called perceptual modulation and how it applies to epistemology and how having a correct epistemology is very, very beneficial in terms of getting results too. Because I mean, everyone likes results, right? I don't really care about results. I'm actually addicted to failure personally. But that's me.